I'm your faculty for ethics. Now today we are going to analyze the UPSC Mains 2024 GS4 ethics paper. Now the reaction which we have got from students, most of the students were saying that the paper was relatively difficult. What I see is that the paper seems difficult only because it is more applied. This year, UPSC has asked questions in a manner which requires you to think on your theoretical aspects and apply it in a practical way. If you look at the questions, maximum questions are more or less current affairs oriented. They have taken something from current affairs and framed a question on it. Now here it is required that you should understand the theories in detail. Now you should be in a position to apply it. And this doesn't mean that this year they have asked applied questions, so next year also they will ask applied questions. UPSC sometimes asks theoretical questions. Maybe one year they will ask more theoretical and static questions. Next year they may focus more on the contextual or current affairs oriented questions. So this is not the trend, but we can expect such questions in future too. Okay. Now let's start with the question paper with the first question, which is related to artificial intelligence. Now read this question. The application of artificial intelligence as a dependable source of input for administrative rational decision making is a debatable issue. Critically examine the statement from the ethical point of view. Now, first of all, this question is something which was expected because artificial intelligence is in news since last 2, 3, 4 years, but this year it is in news consistently because there is a discussion going on at the international level, at the United Nations level, to bring in some mechanism which can govern artificial intelligence. Right now the technology is emerging, but there is no regulating mechanism available. And entire world is concerned about artificial intelligence. So this year in the ethics paper itself, they have asked two questions, one in theory, one in the case study related to artificial intelligence. This was expected. Now, if you look at the trend, UPSC asks about technologies many a times. What can be ethical issues involved in the technologies? So even if you understand about things about any technology, then also you could have approached this answer very easily. Now, as far as this question is concerned, they are asking whether artificial intelligence is a dependable source of input in the administrative rational decision making. So first of all, you should know about this administrative rational decision making. When you're taking decisions in the administrations, they are rational. Rational means, first of all, they are data driven, they are very much objective, and they are impartial. This is what we do when it comes to decision making in the administration. Now what happens is that now if we are using artificial intelligence more in the administration, in the governance, so the data will be processed by this AI, definitely. But can artificial intelligence actually take the most rational decisions? Is it is it the case that the process which is being used by artificial intelligence is a reliable one or it is not reliable? So the core issue that you need to discuss over here is that first of all you will have to show the importance or benefit of artificial intelligence in the administration. So you have to discuss the benefits. The benefit could be you can process large data. That is a very good advantage. You can also talk about less errors. See, the computer can work relatively better than human beings when it comes to data or numbers. So there will be less errors, we can say. There can be impartiality to a good extent because the humans are more or less partial sometimes. They have their own interest, but a computer or a machine will not have its own interest as such. So you can tell about all these benefits. But then when you're talking about its dependability or reliability, then you need to talk about the concerns or the ethical issues which are involved in it. So what you can talk about? The issue with artificial intelligence. First issue with the decision making is that we humans, when we make any decisions, we have a logical flow. We use a scientific method. We think in a rational manner. But we do not know how artificial intelligence actually thinks. The programmers have built artificial intelligence, but even they do not know how artificial intelligence actually makes decisions. It is operating through multiple or so many sources are there. The data is in very vast quantity, and how it is coming to a final conclusion, even the programmers do not know. So can you rely on a process, on a decision making which does not seem rational at all? That is a big concern. Second issue is related to your data privacy. You can talk about the data privacy concerns which will be emerged because of maximum use of artificial intelligence. Then there is a chance that we humans are biased. The data which is being provided to artificial intelligence, if that data itself contains some biasness, then you will see that the entire system, the technology itself will also continue with that bias. So we are saying it is very difficult for us to completely rely on artificial intelligence when it comes to taking inputs for our administrative decision making. Now, these are all the points which any student is going to write. But how are we connecting it with our theories? One of the theory could be looking at Gandhi's idea of seven sins. What Gandhi used to talk about. He used to say, science without humanity is a sin. Now here we have artificial intelligence lacking sometimes the humanity angle. Or we have commerce without morality. Artificial intelligence in economic terms goes ahead with this. Now you can bring in some philosophies or some theoretical frameworks. For example, if we are talking about the benefits, then you can talk about Mill, J.S. Mill, who talked about utilitarianism. Now, if we go by the theory of utilitarianism, artificial intelligence seems to be a very good source, very reliable source. Maximum happiness of maximum people will be possible through this. But if we are talking about the concerns or issues, you can mention Immanuel Kant. Kant says that the man should be an end in itself. And in this case, if our data is being used, the data is being processed, and we have just become a medium, then it becomes very much questionable. So there are concerns in this. So there's a line by Stephen Hawking. He used to say that artificial intelligence is something very interesting. Either this can be a thing which is going to be the best thing ever happened to humanity, or it can be the worst thing which can happen to humanity. So you can even start, introduce your answer with the line of Stephen Hawking. You can even mention about Yuval Noah Harari, who is criticizing artificial intelligence again and again. All of this can be mentioned. This is how you can add value to your answers. Okay. And in the conclusion, you have to take a balanced view in which you can say that we can integrate this artificial intelligence to a good extent. It's a good technology, but we have to ensure that it is also regulated, its decisions are right, and humans cannot be completely removed. There should be human oversight about this artificial intelligence. This is how you can come up with a good answer. Okay, if you have any doubts, please ask. Okay, let's move forward with the next question. Question number two, question number 1B. Ethics encompasses several key dimensions that are crucial in guiding individuals and organizations towards morally responsible behavior. Explain the key dimensions of ethics that influence human actions. Discuss how these dimensions shape ethical decision making in professional context. Now, this is a purely theoretical question, and this paper setter has tried to make it little bit applied. The UPSC has asked many a times similar kinds of questions. They go deeper in the nature of ethics, how human action is affected, what is the role of ethics in human actions, all of these angles. This is what UPSC is asking. So you should know the trend. Now, as far as the dimensions they have asked, the key dimensions of ethics that influence human actions. Think on this line. Human action will go in this direction or that direction. That depends on our thoughts. So if you have understood this model wherein our cognitive aspect has a key role to play in the actions we do or our behavior. And here we are saying ethics is going to play a key role in our cognitive thought process. Also, you can bring in the affective component also. But the point is, when we say cognitive or affective aspect, what are we exactly talking about? Think about ethics in a broader way. Key dimensions they are asking. When you look at ethics in a broader way, ethics includes many things. For example, ethics will include your values, your virtues, your rights, your justice. Ethics will talk about integrity. Ethics will talk about compassion. Moreover, we can say all of these dimensions overall impact human beings. You see, whether it is values, virtues, or anything, all of these have some impact on our actions. If I value punctuality, I will come to the class on time or in time. Now, the action that I have taken is influenced by one of the value that I have. So overall, you have to show how this exactly happens. Okay, so you have to put some examples. You can even talk about the idea of dharma. Dharma, which is very common in India, which has its base in the Rig Veda. So how that part, the idea of dharma, impacts the action of human beings. So for example, we have the concept of Ram Rajya, in which we have a king who is considered to be an ideal king. Now, how will you consider a king as ideal? Or you will consider a normal human being as an ideal human being? You expect that person to be highly ethical. So all these dimensions, if they are present in a human being, we say he or she is the ideal human being. So a person of value, a person of virtues. So all these dimensions, this is how you were expected to show how ethics can be influenced. I'm sorry, the slide has been changed. So this is the first dimension that has been asked in this question. Second, discuss how these dimensions shape ethical decision making in professional context. Now, because they have asked specifically about professional context, think about it. Professional could be on one side, it could be from, just a second. One could be in your government sector, another could be in the private sector. So think on these lines, how in government sector as public servants, or how in the private sectors as a normal employee, how these values, virtues, or all these dimensions affect your actions. So you can think about whistleblowers. The whistleblowers, when they are taking any action, they are driven by their values. Okay, it's a very tough action which they are taking, but that requires that value specifically. And against it, there could be one example of corruption which you can mention, that because the person is lacking the ethical or moral compass or the values, the person is getting into corruption. So dimensions or examples will come in this manner simply. Clear? So you can simply introduce with the idea of ethics, idea of ideal human being, and conclude in a manner to show that ethics is integral part of our society, and especially when it comes to professional context, ethics builds that trust which is necessary for our professional relationships or professional beings. Clear? Okay. Now, question number 2A. Now, this is an interesting question, I'll say. They're asking, it is not enough to talk about peace, one must believe in it. And it is not enough to believe in it, one must act upon it. Please on AC on kar do. AC. So, in the present context, the major weapon industries of the developed nations are adversely influencing continuation of number of wars for their own self-interest all around the world. What are the ethical considerations of the powerful nations in today's international arena to stop continuation of ongoing conflicts? Now see, the question is simply talking about increasing arms race. Right now, we have some countries who have a kind of industry which runs on the principle of more violence. For example, you take example of USA, wherein there is a military complex where they are manufacturing weapons, manufacturing military related items or equipments. And their industry will grow only when the conflicts in the world are increasing. So right now, Russia-Ukraine war is going on. Hamas conflict is going on. Hezbollah is also included in it. So right now we are observing unstable world, and the question has been framed from the same angle. And UPSC has been asking questions related to international affairs or wars. So this is not something new they have asked. This is again a predictable question, we can say. Now, what they are focusing on? They are focusing on the ethical consideration of powerful nations in the world. Now, if I have to set the context very clear, recently there was a report by CIPRI. That report has shown the increasing arms race in the world. If you start your answer with this CIPRI report, I think the context will be set in the right manner. Now show that there is arms race going on. Show that there is ethical angle to it. And now come to this powerful nation specifically. What are the ethical considerations when it comes to powerful nations? What they should actually consider. Now first of all, you can bring in Gandhiji. What Gandhiji used to say, again, commerce without morality. You're thinking about profit more and you're not thinking about its consequences because it lacks the angle of morality. This you can bring in. You can even talk about Kant. In the entire paper, I think Gandhi, Kant and Rousseau, they can be used extensively again and again. So in this answer also you can use it. Now one angle which you can bring in is related to existence. Look at the policies. Look at the policy of USA. USA can be the best example for this. If USA's national policy says that we want to go ahead with peace. We want peace in the entire world or in the country itself. But if you look at their economic policy, it is going for profit, and one of the profit making mechanism is through selling of weapons, which will only increase with increasing violence in the world. So here you can show that there is a contradiction in the policy itself. You can show that there is a conflict of interest in the USA's or developed nations policies. Then you can talk about the instability. See, the ethical considerations when you are showing, talk about the consequence it will have. For example, there will be instability, there will be, wherever there will be violence, there will be more poverty, there will be more inequality, and there will be more crimes. So things are going to get bad with time. And if this thing continues, it can affect your own country too. So you can show that the model of capitalism which is being followed by these countries specifically is relatively or is to a good extent unsustainable and as well as inhuman. Inhuman. So these angles you can show. I said you can also make use of Rousseau. Rousseau talked about the idea of general will, which you can bring in over here. So you can talk about any treaty by United Nations or anything which the world community assumes as the right thing. Now these developed countries are going against that general will. The entire world thinks that there should be peace. There should not be more weapons. But the industry is running in such a way which is going against that general will. So it is against the democratic world order. So this is how you can bring in points. And now if you want to give it a touch of your philosophy, especially the Indian philosophical tradition, you can talk about the value of ahimsa or non-violence, which you can say. This you can mention as a solution. As if this value prevails, in that case, such powerful nations will change their mindset to a good extent. This is how you can come to a conclusion. Now, what can be the conclusion? Conclusion is simply we are talking about powerful nations, and with power, always there is responsibility. If you are more powerful, you have more responsibility. So these nations should take that responsibility and act in a more responsible manner. Instead of going ahead with such economic policies, they should go ahead with more peacemaking policies. Because eventually violence is not the end. It is the peace. Peace is the eternal value. Okay? So this is how you can write a very good answer, especially for this question. Now, moving ahead with the next question, question number 2B. Global warming and climate change are the outcomes of human greed in the name of development, indicating the direction in which extinction of organisms, including human beings, is heading towards loss of life on Earth. How do you put an end to this to protect life and bring equilibrium between society and environment? Now, a straightforward question from the environment side. Earlier also UPSC has asked about environmental ethics. So it is normal for UPSC to ask on this topic. And most importantly, the grave concern at the global level right now is the climate change, a very important issue at hand. So it was very much expected that UPSC will ask something related to this. So nothing new, a predictable question I can say. Now, what is expected in this? They are saying whatever is happening, this global warming and climate change, the core reason is human greed. So, interestingly, UPSC itself has given the answer also that why is it happening? It is because of human greed. And they have asked you, how are you going to put an end to this? So, they are asking a solution. They know why it is happening, right? But when you're writing the answer, it is expected from your side that you show this angle specifically. You show this angle. While introducing, you can mention about the climate change, you can put any data to show what kind of scenario is taking place, everything you can show. But the core demand, to satisfy this core demand, you can show that right now we are facing climate crisis, right? But why this is taking place? What is the reason behind it? The reason is the developmental model that we are following. The developmental model which we are following, it is an unsustainable model. The model in itself is wrong. And why this model is wrong? Because it is based in human greed. The neo-capitalistic model that we are following at present, that is based in the value of greed. We all are greedy at this moment, and that's why all these problems are coming into picture. So if you are giving a solution, put an end to this, the solution cannot just talk about climate change. The solution cannot just talk about developmental model. It has to talk about greed also. So when you give the solutions, give solutions related to greed. How are you going to end the greed in human beings? Then you talk about changing the developmental model. So right now we are talking about SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals and all. We are trying to shift towards renewable energy sources. That's where we are changing our developmental model to some extent. You can also talk about bringing conservation, for example, forest conservation, or we can go ahead with policies where we check the environmental impact and all. Now, this is the answer maximum students are going to write. But in the ethics, this angle is important because the core issue is greed. So, how are you going to deal with greed? For that, one of the way could be value education. See, the problem is that nowadays, for people, greed is an important value. After some time, if we change the value system itself, then people will not be greedy. So the model, developmental model itself will change and there won't be any global warming or climate change. And to bring that, there will be many things. You can do this through your schooling system, through families, through public awareness, or people can go ahead with mindfulness, all of these. Now you can bring in the element of Bhagavad Gita or Jainism or Buddhism, which talks about the idea of impermanence, that nothing is permanent in this world. So here you can show that you should not be greedy because nothing is permanent. The material wealth, the materialism itself is built through greed, and that is not even permanent. So all these angles you can mention. And there is one side which talks about the idea of stewardship. Again, you can bring in Gandhiji over here, Rousseau again. The idea of stewardship says that whatever we have, this entire planet, all these resources, we humans are not owners of this land. We are just stewards. We are just like trustees. So Gandhiji's trusteeship. So if you bring this theory of trusteeship of Gandhiji, you can say that we are just stewards. We are not owners. That's why we should have a sustainable model. We should not be greedy. We should just focus on our needs. This is how we can give a solution. So there will be some practical advices, some abstract advices which you will be giving in this particular answer. Clear? So this is how at the end you have to give a hopeful or optimistic conclusion that we can deal with this, but that requires a reformative or transformative shift. You can give the example of Prime Minister Modi, who talked about life initiative. Life initiative says that we need to change the behavior. But again, to add your own value, you can say the behavior will change when the values will change. So cognitive and affective component is also very important. So all of this can be mentioned. Again, a very good question and a very good answer can be written. Okay. Now question number 3. Now this is a code based question. You are asked 3 code based questions every year. This year also they have asked in the similar manner. Rather this year they have asked easier quotes, I will say. The first quote is given by Swami Vivekananda. Learn everything that is good from others, but bring it in and in your own way, absorb it. Do not become others. What is it trying to say? Simply that learn from others. Whatever you can take from others, please take it. Please absorb it. But don't become like them. Now, this question has been asked because nowadays, specifically because of the phenomena of globalization, we are observing a phenomena named as cultural homogenization. If I have to give you an example, most of us are speaking English. Most of us are wearing clothes which are British or American in origin. We are eating the food which is similar to American food. So there is a domination of English culture over us. So we are homogenizing, and this is happening because of the phenomenon of globalization to a good extent. Now, this quote, if you read, you will understand that it is saying you should absorb things from others. That means if there are something good things which are there with America, China, or any other country, you should certainly take it. But you should not leave your own aspect. Don't become others. Remain yourself. So the core problem is right now individualism is increasing and individuality is decreasing. This is the core of this particular statement. Now, whenever there is a code based question, you have the full freedom wherein you can be creative, write on your own any dimension. If you are able to think, you can write it, no issues. But this is how I look at it, that individualism is increasing, individuality is decreasing. Individualism is you're thinking about your own rights, your own freedom, and this goes against society. You say that society is not good, we want our own freedom. Individuality is different. It talks about creativity, self exploration. So that is individuality. And the quotation specifically says that you are focusing on your personal development, your personal growth. While doing that, please ensure that you should not leave your individuality, your own creative thought process, your own element or your own existence. That should be there. Now, similar thoughts, I remember these thoughts are very much similar to what Rajneesh Osho used to talk about. Very similar thoughts. Now, here you have 2 3 different angles. Well, I will give you some examples which you can easily add. For example, you can talk about education, let's say. Now, in case of education, there are 2 methods through which you can get education or you can get your wisdom. One is the external source, let's say the books or any other source that is available in the market. Those are the source. So you should absorb all of that. But there is one source of knowledge within you. That internal source, that is also very important. You should not leave that. So you go ahead with the self introspection. You think on your own, develop your rational mindset. And this is how you will come up with real wisdom or real education. This is what the quote is trying to say. Here we talked about education. You can even talk about culture in the same manner, that absorb but preserve your own also. Come up with your own culture also. So all of this can be mentioned. And eventually, if you have to put a value addition to this, if you want to draw something, you can write external, just a second, you can write the external source plus the internal compass or internal source. The when it works in integrity, this will lead to holistic development. This will lead to holistic development of individuals. So this is how I have ensured that there is a flow in the answer and there is clarity in the particular expression of that quote. Clear? Now, the next one, question number 3B. It says, in law, a man is guilty. I'm sorry, I think the question has been misplaced. Just a second. We'll check the question. So this is actually question number 3C and not B. So instead of this quote, there is a quote given by Sardar Patel. Now, let me just read it out for you. The quote is, faith is of no avail in the absence of strength. Faith and strength both are essential to accomplish any great work, said by Sardar Patel. So he's talking about faith and strength. Faith and strength. And Patel is saying that if you have faith, but if you do not have strength, then it is of no use, completely useless it is. This is the quote. Now I'll say, if you have done your previous year questions, if you have prepared them, then this is a very easy question for you. Why? Because earlier in 2022, UPSC had asked a similar kind of question, wherein they said that if you lack the courage, then how you're going to go ahead with your knowledge? Similar kind of, they had asked. Now, I can relate it simply with the thoughts of Swami Vivekanand. How? Swami Vivekanand used to say that if you have knowledge, but if you lack the courage, then your knowledge is completely useless. Let's say I know what is right and wrong, but when it comes to taking action, I'm not taking it because I'm afraid. I do not have the strength. Then it is all useless. So here, when Sardar Patel is talking about the faith and strength, he is also talking about similar kinds of things. When it comes to faith, it is about your knowledge or your beliefs or your convictions. And when it comes to strength, the strength could be your confidence, your courage, or you can say the strength may involve physical strength, mental strength, or even emotional strength, or even now this is something we are imagining about an individual. These are all the strengths required for you to act on your faith. You believe in something, but you're not acting because you lack these things. Think about, don't just think about individuals. If you think about people, all the people, then you will think about a collective strength that we have. Let's say we all believe in democratic values, but we have a king or a ruler who doesn't believe in democratic values and he is acting in such a way which is not at all democratic. Now, if we all have the collective strength, we show that collective strength, we can remove that ruler very easily. But when we lack that, we are not able to do it. So simply we are saying faith without strength is completely useless. It is certainly important to have strength. Now you can relate it with the ideas of Plato. Plato gave more importance to knowledge. He said that knowledge is virtue, knowledge is everything. A person having knowledge is the best person. But you can bring in that courage or strength is also very, very important, especially the moral courage to go ahead with it. Okay, this you will find in the ideas of Aristotle also, even in the ideas of Plato also to some extent. He gives importance to courage. So this is how you can write the answer. Okay, at the end, if you still want to draw any diagram or you can bring in elements of Indian philosophical traditions, I will bring either Buddhism or Jainism in this. For example, in Buddhism you will find that in the eightfold path, Buddha talks about right direction as well as right action. Now Right direction shows your wisdom or knowledge or your beliefs or your faith. And right action, for that action itself, you require strength. So this is how you can give some kind of enrichment to your answer. Okay. Now, moving ahead with the third question, third quote. In law, a man is guilty when he violates the rights of others. In ethics, he is guilty if he only thinks of doing so. Said by Immanuel Kant. Anyway, we read about Immanuel Kant in detail in ethics. So again, this is a very easy question for you. See, it is showing difference between ethics and law. And what happens is that in case of ethics, the action in itself is not that important. This is what the quotation is trying to say. Let's say what happens in case of law. If you have taken an action which is against the law, you have broken the law. In that case, we will punish you. That action is an illegal action. And the rule is already written. It will be written in a book or something. This is how your action is considered as wrong. Now, if you look at ethics, ethics will not judge you on the basis of action. It will judge you on the basis of your intent plus action. Now, there is a possibility you have not taken any action, but your intention was wrong. For example, you hate a person. You hate a person. You want to kill that person. Even though you are not killing him, the action is not yet being taken up, but you have the intent to kill that person. So that intent, that thought itself makes you an immoral person, or the moral guilt is there. This is what Kant is trying to say through this particular quote. So here the role of intent, role of conscience is very important. This is how you are expected to show the difference. Now, if you want to go much deeper, you can also say that when it comes to animals and humans, we first want to convert animals into human beings, and at that time we look at law, because what law does, they put animals into a zoo and make them human to some extent, wherein we will act according to the law, will not do something harmful to the other person, because there is a law, there is a punishment mechanism which is available. But we become purely human when we are led by our conscience, we are led by ethical principles or ethical values. So, to some extent, we can say ethics has a higher level of integrity as compared to law. Sometimes a person can be legally correct but ethically completely wrong. He may do an action which is legally okay, there's no issue because legally he was right, but everyone knows ethically it was not right. Look at the Harshad Mehta scam and all. You will get the answers in this. Or you can even talk about vote bank politics done by politicians or political parties. Although legally not wrong, but ethically incorrect. And to end it, as a part of value addition, again, you can talk about Islamic ethics. In Islamic ethics, they specifically mention that your intent and your deed, that is your action, both should be good. Only in that case your action would be overall judged as a morally correct action. This is how you can end it. Clear? Okay. Any doubts? No doubts. Let's move ahead. Question number 4b. Sorry, 4a. The concept of just and unjust. The concept of just means what is right and what is wrong. Just and unjust is contextual. What was just a year back may turn out to be unjust in today's context. Changing context should be constantly under scrutiny to prevent miscarriage of justice. Examine the above statement with suitable examples. Now think about example first before even starting with your introduction. Think about why this has been asked. Because right now we are observing many social movements taking place. For example, hashtag Me Too campaign was there. For example, Black Lives Matter, that was there in news. LGBTQ rights movement is going on. All of these are showing that at one point of time, some of the things were considered just or unjust, right now the definition has changed. So at one point of time, patriarchy was considered to be a good thing, slavery was considered to be a good thing, but right now we don't consider as a good thing, we don't consider as just action, rather unjust thing. So things are changing. So in society, ethics or values are completely clearly changing. So there is a dynamic nature of ethics, or we can say values. So this is nothing but the idea of relativism. When it comes to ethics, we say there is relative ethics. The societies are evolving, and with evolution we see change in the values of people. Even our values are consistently changing. Earlier homosexuality was considered to be a crime, right now we are accepting it. So this is how values are clearly changing. So you can make a diagram, you can show in ancient, medieval, modern, and even in the postmodern time how values are consistently changing. How something that was considered unjust is now being considered just, or something that was considered just is now being considered unjust. This is how you show it. Now, this is the way you can go ahead with this answer. This is the way maximum students will go ahead with. You can even counter this argument with one side, that it is not like there is relativity everywhere. It is not like ethics or values are completely dynamic. There is some static angle to it. When we talk about idea of absolute ethics, it is relatively static. When your ethics and your values are based in the eternal things, for example, if there is an act which is based on idea of peace, idea of happiness, idea of love, or idea of compassion, you will see that usually that thing will not change. Okay, so for example, marriage as an institution, it exists since ancient times, we can say. Why is it existing? Because our value system matches with it and our needs match with it. So overall we can say, to some extent, even though there is influence of our society, our social values, our time on our values or our ethics, still there is some static part of it which exists, which is eternal. So both sides you're showing. This is how you show your analysis, your understanding of this particular thought, as well as your own understanding of ethics and values, virtues, etc. Clear? Now, the next question. Mindless addiction. Mindless addiction to form, ignoring the substance of the matter, results in rendering of injustice. A perceptive civil servant is one who ignores such literalness and carries out true intent. Examine the above statement with suitable illustrations. Now, this is a question which is nothing but a repetition of a previously asked question. Earlier, one question was asked, which said that civil servants focus more on the peripheral issues instead of core issues. They should focus on the core issues rather than peripheral one. And the similar statement is given over here. Even if you're not understanding the first statement, it simply means that when you're becoming a civil servant and you're in the position of power or authority, you should not just focus on the form, or you should not just focus on the process or procedure. Rather, you should focus on the substance. That means you should focus on value. Now see, what happens is that in bureaucracy, usually we say bureaucracy is a procedural one. They just follow the process. They follow the rules, laws as it is. It is whenever it is mentioned, they will follow it as it is. So even if there is a disaster taking place in your area and there is a person who needs your help and you are involved in the documentation process at that time, is it really required at that time? No. So they're saying don't focus on this form or procedure, focus on the substance. Why you were made a bureaucrat, why those laws or rules have been established. Behind it, there is a value. The value is of a welfare state. You can look at the philosophy of our constitution, the values in our constitution. You'll understand we have a welfare state who wants to help our citizens in almost every aspect. So in that disaster, the bureaucrat should rather go ahead and help that person instead of going ahead with the documentation. Similar, you can think about an example of a hospital. Let's say a person is about to die. So will you wait for the family to come, fill the form, give the documentation, or you should directly go ahead and help that person, right? So the value is of compassion, value is of love. So overall, you have to show this thing that if people just become procedural, they don't focus on the substance and only focus on form, this will make you an ignorant person. This will lead to actions which will cause injustice. This you can show. I hope you can show now. Now, they have also talked about a perceptive civil servant. This civil servant is one who ignores such things and comes up with the right thing or substance. So again, in the answer also you have to show the same thing. What is a perceptive civil servant? Perceptive means a person who understands subtle things, hidden things. Let's say I'm speaking something. You will not just listen to my words, but you will also understand the emotions behind my words. So a perceptive person will will be capable of understanding the subtle things. And that's why such a capable person has been made civil servant. It is his job to understand things in detail. So you will not just read a constitution, you will understand the intent of or the philosophy of constitution. What was the intent of constituent assembly? What was the intent of our forefathers? Why did they bring this constitution? The person will understand that part also and will apply it when it is actually necessary, specifically when there is an emergency case. Then you actually require to focus more on substance rather than just procedures or forms. So this is how you had to show. Now you can to just show how this can happen, although they haven't asked about it. Still, in one or two lines in the conclusion part, you can mention that this can be brought first through the cognitive aspect of understanding things, gaining knowledge, becoming rational, thinking in a manner which is critical. The affective component of it, wherein you feel you have those value system in you and you are emotionally attached to it. And thirdly, with your actions. So there is an idea of seva bhav given by Swami Vivekanand. So if you have seva bhav in you, you have the spirit of service in you, then you will focus on the substance rather than form. Okay, even if the documentation is not possible, you'll still try to help that person. That will happen. Clear? Now, question number 5a. This question, the code of conduct and code of ethics are the sources of guidance in public administration. There is code of conduct already in operation, whereas code of ethics is not yet put in place. Suggest a suitable model for code of ethics to maintain integrity, probity, and transparency in governance. Now, this is simply a question built through static concepts. Now, mostly UPC used to ask these questions earlier. Right now, in this paper, hardly there are questions from static part which are directly asked. So, good question we can say, expected question we can say. Now, here, first of all, you need to show the difference between code of conduct and code of ethics in the introduction itself. Basic difference is that code of conduct shows the rules or norms which are clearly established. For example, in your organization, there are some do's and don'ts which are clearly told to you. So those are part of your code of conduct. Even at the time of elections, there is model code of conduct. Politicians clearly know what to do, what not to do. But when it comes to code of ethics, it is not about specific rules or norms. It is about the principles, moral principles or values that an organization or society or individual adheres to. So maybe you are part of an organization or a corporate company where there is one value which is considered to be important. So that value will be part of your code of ethics. What is the difference between these two is that this is very much clear. This is very much concrete. You can understand it easily. But when it comes to principles and values, these are very much abstract. Very much abstract. It is not that easy to understand it. And it is very difficult to mention it also. And because of its abstract nature and deeper nature, one needs to think on it. This can be understood very easily. Okay. Now, there in the question itself, they are saying that code of conduct is already in operation, because you will see that the code of conduct is in operation. If you talk about bureaucracy in 1964, some rules came which show the code of conduct and all, but code of ethics is not yet prepared. No codification has taken place. They are asking, you suggest us a model. You suggest us a model. Now, this is a creative question. Here you have complete freedom. Whatever you want to write, you can write over here. Some people may make use of Nolan committee report. They can bring those values from it. For example, integrity, openness, all those things they can mention, that it is most important part of code of ethics if we are making it. Some people may go for second ARC report. From there they can bring in. But in case if you want to mention on your own, that is also possible over here. So give a structure. You can also make a diagram wherein you can say this is a model code of ethics in which I think that there should be, in my organization or wherever I'm working, there should be whistleblower protection mechanism. I will establish that. That is very important. You may think, you can also say there should be accountability mechanism, that any officer who has taken any action, he should be accountable for it. There should be mechanism for transparency. So you can say any action taken has to be shown in a transparent manner to all the public. It should be communicated. Anyhow, you can write anything. Okay. And bring in all the important values. The best would be to come up with the reports, a second ARC report and all, wherein the important values are anyway mentioned over there. Okay. So this is how you can mention the model. Now question number 5B. Again, interesting question taken from the current affairs. Bharat Nyaya Sanhita. A reform has been carried out in our criminal justice system. IPC, CRPC, all have been replaced with the new legal process in terms of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. UPSC is saying, in this Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, the soul of this new law is justice, equality, and impartiality based on Indian culture and ethos. Discuss this in the light of major shift from a doctrine of punishment to justice in the present judicial system. Now, first of all, you must know what is this Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, otherwise it is difficult for you to answer. But if we go on a broader scale, the broader idea that it is reflecting is the shift in the idea of justice in the modern times. See, earlier, idea of justice exists since a very long time. But there is a shift which is taking place. You will see, earlier we used to focus more on retributive justice. You can make a diagram and show this thing. That earlier we used to focus on retributive justice. That if you have done something wrong, you will be punished in the same manner. So that was the idea. But with time, we are coming up with a new idea, that is reformative justice. Reformative justice. So here you can link Gandhiji. Gandhiji used to say that do not hate the sinner, hate the sin. The person has done something wrong, don't hate that person. Even if he has killed someone, don't hate that person. That action was wrong because the person was ignorant. So here, reformation says that you should allow the person to reform. Otherwise, what will happen? If you start giving punishment only, then it will be like an eye for an eye. When the entire world will become blind, you will just continue punishing people. Rather, we should ensure that our society reforms. People understand that they have done something wrong, they were guilty, and they reform themselves. They go ahead with the Hriday Parivartan. So right now, if you look at the BNS, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, they are coming up with the idea of reformative justice. This we can show over here. Okay, so in the introduction, you talk about Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita and then come up with this special shift in the justice, idea of justice. And for that, you need to come up with some examples. For example, in BNS, they are talking about mediation, that there is victim and there is offender. They can both sit together and have a mediation also. This is alternate dispute resolution mechanism. This shows that instead of giving only punishment, You are allowing the person to reform, which is good. Then there is example of juvenile justice. Now earlier we were going ahead with many punishments. Now we have some rehabilitation program for juveniles. That is also shows that we are focusing on reforming these juveniles who had gone ahead with some kind of a crime. Now, specifically because they have mentioned about justice, equality and impartiality, please ensure that you are writing about these angles, especially with respect to BNS. We talked about justice already. You can talk about equality also. So, in the BNS, they talked about legal aid, that those who are marginalized, they should get legal aid. So, this shows the principle of equality. Very good. Then impartiality. We can take the example of simplifying procedures. What is government trying? They are simplifying all the procedures, making it rational, making it simple. Now, when you do that, what happens is that if the procedures, laws are very simple, very easy to understand, you will not have interpretational biases. So many times judges have to come up with their own interpretation. The officers will go ahead with their own interpretation. There can be biases. But when the clarity and simplification is there, what will happen? Such impartiality will not be. So such partiality will not be there. It will be much more impartial. So this is how, please give some examples from BNS and bring in all these elements to show that there is a shift taking place. And to show the Indian cultural angle or Indian ethos angle, here you can talk about idea of dharma and idea of ahimsa. This is important. I talked about the reformation, reformative justice. You can link it with ahimsa. Right now we are talking about changing the doctrine related to capital punishment. We give it in rarest of the rare case, and nowadays we are talking about this thing that we should not have any capital punishment at all in the 21st century. So as our society is modernizing, we are trying to make our society more humane. This is the core. This is the shift which is taking place. Okay, so this you can directly show. Now, moving ahead. Question number 6A. In Indian culture and value system, an equal opportunity has been provided irrespective of gender identity. The number of women in public service has been steadily increasing over the years. Examine the gender specific challenges faced by female public servants and suggest suitable measures to increase their efficiency in discharging their duties and maintaining high standards of probity. Now, more or less, the question is trying to talk about role of women in public services, what kind of challenges they face. See, examine gender specific challenges. This is something you need to discuss and then provide some suitable measures. This is the easiest part for you. If you know the challenges, you can provide the solutions also. So first think about it. You can start your introduction by showing that gender inequality exists in our society since a very long time, and nowadays we are observing some change in the society. But still, when it comes to public servants specifically, what kind of issues or challenges they specifically face, you have to think on these lines. So you can think that when they go to their workplace, they may face some challenges. The society itself is having patriarchal values, so even at the workplace she will have to deal with those patriarchal values. Then there can be sexual harassment of women. Then there is dual burden. She has to take care of her home as well as she has to take care of the office. So there is a dual burden on women. This you can show. And if you overall try to project the idea of gender sensitivity, you will show that the male domination is not something we are observing for the first time, or it's not like it is happening only in India. Throughout the world, you will observe that there is domination. So it is a global problem. Now, here we are specifically talking about public servants, female public servants, specifically in India. But nothing has been specifically mentioned. They are talking about Indian culture, Indian value system in which gender equality was important. So right now we are moving towards it. Now it is your job to show some comparison also. Even though it is not directly asked, you can compare the women public servants, women public servants of India with that of Scandinavian countries. Now, this will give an edge to you in the answers. If you look at Scandinavian countries, their public service model is considered to be better than others when it comes to gender sensitivity, gender equality. So you can show a comparison that even though we are doing good, we still need to move ahead. We still need more reforms. And then you can talk about all these measures which are required. So for all the challenges, if you write one or two statements also in the form of measures, what all can be done, that will be a sufficient answer for this question. Okay. Now, question number 6b related to Mission Karma Yogi. Now, before I read the question, those who do not know Mission Karma Yogi, it's very difficult to answer this question. But it was expected from you that you should know this particular mission. In 2020, government came up with this Mission Karma Yogi, and since last 2-3 years, we are expecting that someday UPSC will come up with a question related to Mission Karma Yogi. So I was particularly waiting for a question on this topic. This year we are observing this question. Okay. Now, Mission Karma Yogi is aiming for maintaining a very high standard of conduct and behavior to ensure efficiency for serving citizens and in turn developing oneself. They could see you can develop yourself as well as you will be becoming very much efficient. Your behavior and all will be very good towards citizens. How will this scheme empower civil servants in enhancing productive efficiency and delivering the services at the grassroots level? Now, obviously, you can understand that the question demands you to mention about this Mission Karma Yogi. What is this mission? What was its objective specifically? What was the feature? And then you can show how it is going to empower civil servants, how it is going to deliver service at the grassroots level. So, if you know the features, then you can talk about it. So the features could be that it is talking about capacity building of these bureaucrats. So some kind of a program which includes e-learning modules also. They want the civil servants to become relatively modern with new things. For example, the digital space is increasing, so they should be trained with these digital systems. But overall, if I have to talk about this mission, why this has come into picture and where it is exactly leading in the deeper way, not just mentioning about objectives, this you will anyway mention. The broader angle is that when there was British Raj, at that time India was a police state. Here bureaucrats were working, they were simply implementing the laws which were given by the British government. They did not care about people as such at that point of time. They didn't even ask people about their laws. Now, after some time, specifically in the post independent time period, here, India became a welfare state. Now, here bureaucracy started working in the interest of its people. But again, the direction was from central to the local, or we can say that government was deciding entire laws, everything what should be done for the people, and that bureaucracy used to implement, or the framework was given by the government itself. So here you can say from this you have reached to this, here you are governing your people. So governance is going on. But now in the third phase, we are moving towards the phenomena of good governance. So in good governance, what we are talking about? We are saying that the governance should be done in a manner which is citizen centric. So bureaucracy should ensure that even people participate in the governance. The laws are made by the people, even the execution should be done in the presence of citizens. So the governance module is changing in the 21st century. So here the Mission Karma Yogi is one of those schemes for the bureaucrats to develop themselves in such a manner and become one who can go ahead with this citizen centric governance. This is the core idea. Now, in this question, you are expected to write how they are going to empower the people. Okay, now if you know that what are the features, you can simply mention that. and how they are going to enhance efficiency and deliver. So this is how these dimensions, same points you have to mention in these dimensions. Okay, so capacity will be built. We will see a modern bureaucracy, a very good bureaucracy. Now to add value to your answer, you can specifically mention about this idea of karma yoga. Okay, so there is one path of yoga, that is Gyan Marg or Gyan Yoga, wherein knowledge is the source of your liberation. Knowledge is everything. Another way is Bhakti Yoga, wherein you show the devotion. So one was the cognitive aspect of knowledge. Another one is affective aspect of emotions. This third one is Karma Yoga, which focuses on action part, which says that remain detached from the fruits of all your actions, just do your actions. So these actions are important. You can talk about Bhagavad Gita, the Nishkam Karma, all these ideas can be mentioned over here in this Mission Karma Yoga. Clear? Now, moving ahead with the case study part. We are done with theory questions. Now, case studies I'll not be reading because it will take a lot of time. I expect you to read on your own. I'll tell you in brief what was this case study all about. So it says that you are a CEO of a tech company, and this tech company is a big giant player, and now the company is shifting towards using artificial intelligence. Now the problem with artificial intelligence is that because it processes heavy data, the quantity of data is very high, the processing and all, it all requires more energy, more electricity. So your company will now use more electricity, so the consumption will increase, and because electricity consumption is increasing, your greenhouse gas emission will increase, obviously that you can understand. So here they are talking about this angle. What will your company do? Because you are anyway going to face some challenge from the regulators or your competitors. They may say you are using a lot of electricity or energy. This is going against the sustainable development model. Okay, so there is somewhere we can say there is a conflict between your profit or competition and environment. Then also there is angle of technology. Can you leave technology for this? That means stop using artificial intelligence. Is it a solution for this just because you want to go ahead with environment, a good environment? So this kind of conflict is there. Now in such case studies, whatever they are asking, obviously the structure will be the same. You will write your immediate response to these challenges, discuss ethical issues, then your company is identified to be penalized. So what are your ethical and logical arguments to convince? And being a conscious being, what measures would you adopt? In the body part, please answer in the same format or same manner. This should be your heading, obviously. But please understand the core issue. What is the core issue or core dilemma the person is facing? That is where you need to focus. One angle is of sustainable development. One angle is of biocracy. What about environment? And then there comes the angle of community also. What about the rights of people also? What about the future generation? If we are using artificial intelligence, we are making profits, but after some time, because of the energy consumption, climate change takes place, global warming takes place, what will happen to our future generations? What about the rights of future generations? So all these angles need to be taken up. These ethical issues you need to focus while writing this answer. Okay. Now here as a solution part, I will suggest you that you bring in a model wherein you do not compromise completely on one thing. Don't compromise environment completely. Don't compromise technology completely. And don't compromise the idea of development which way you will say that it is going unethical, so you'll stop it. So you bring in a model which shows importance of people, importance of profit, as well as importance of planet. So you have to show that the interests are not contradictory, the interests have to become cooperative. Then only we can say the model can sustain. So if I have to talk about technology angle, we can say we can't stop using artificial intelligence. Then you cannot go against this competition because competition is there. So you can't stop all these, but at least you can ensure that your energy consumption becomes lower, or you can shift towards renewable energy sources. So the same company can invest some amount in the renewable sources. They can ensure that whenever some energy is being consumed by your company, you can go ahead with some audits. You can think about some audits. So such mechanisms can be thought about. All of these angles you will write in this. But to give you a theoretical touch, to give it a theoretical touch, you can talk about the ideas of Rousseau or Gandhiji, who talked about the importance of sustainability. Right now, our modern civilization is moving in a direction which can destroy the entire planet. So there is a need of sustainability. We need to think about it. So this angle you can mention in this case study. Okay. Now, next case study is related to Raman, a senior IPS officer. Now, here what is happening is that this IPS officer has to deal with the issue of radicalization, extremism, and terrorism. He is observing that many unemployed youth are being targeted by some terrorist organization. They are radicalizing this youth and recruiting this youth to become part of their terrorist organization. And now, this person, this IPS officer, has to deal with it. So the question asked is, what are the options available to Raman? What measures would you suggest for strengthening the existing setup to ensure that such groups do not succeed in penetrating and violating the atmosphere in the state? Sorry, vitiating. And in the above scenario, what action plan would you advise for enhancing the intelligence gathering mechanism? Now, more or less, what they are asking is, what all can this IPS officer exactly do? What he needs to think about? What measures can be taken up? And specifically, they have asked about intelligence gathering. So, this you can mention separately. Okay, this requires you to think creatively, and whatever you have read in the security part, in the governance part, all those content can be used and you can write this part. So, this is easier. But as far as this angle is concerned, about this option and all, now you need to think deeper. Think about the core issues involved in this case. One may say, sir, terrorism is a problem, so we'll just discuss about terrorism. One may say, sir, radicalization is a problem. So you need to go deeper why everything is happening. So we have to talk about the core issues involved. Whether you talk in the introduction or body, doesn't matter. But this part should be covered by you. The first core issue is unemployment. See, because the youth was unemployed, that's why the same youth got interested in the activities of terrorism, or got into the trap of those extremists. So unemployment is a core problem. Second, the youth is alienated. The youth has lost hope, and because of which they are getting into such activities. The youth is lacking political representation. So they are not happy with what is happening, what politicians are doing, what policies are being framed. They are not so happy. They lack the political representation, and they lack the education or awareness, for which because of which they are getting into the trap of this radicalizing elements. Now, apart from all of these, then there is this issue of radicalization. Okay, there are organizations who prefer to go ahead with radicalization, against which you have to certainly take some actions, right? So core issues are these, and when you're giving your solution, you're going to mention the measures to be taken. Don't just mention about one thing or just terrorism or something. Mention about all of these angles. Then talk about terrorism, because terrorism in itself is a global problem. This radicalization or extremism, this is a global concern. So there is a need of global setup, global cooperation. So you can write the measures, it is not a big deal. I'm just trying to tell you how you can think on this. And in such questions, you can bring in Gandhiji again, you can put that thought. that you should hate the sin and not the sinner. So there can be one angle of reformation, although it might become bit debatable, but you can mention. The paper is subjective, you can have your opinion, no issues with that. Okay. Now, question number 9, again related to an officer who is working in a Naxal affected area. Now, the challenge in front of this officer is that he is going ahead with some special operations in Naxal affected areas. Now, the team ensured that they are going to arrest some of the people, some of the Naxalites. And when they were going to arrest, at that point of time, suddenly the people of the village came up, the tribals came up, especially there were tribal women, and they were completely agitated. They were protesting against the action of police. Now, here, what this officer can exactly do? One option this person has is fire on the people. He may start firing. That is one of the option and go ahead with the arrest. Or second option is to leave it. We'll see them next time. Whether to postpone it, delay the process. Those options are there. And most of you might write the similar kind of things. For example, they asked about what options are available with Rohit or the same officer. So you may write the same thing, but you need to deal with the core issues. Again, core issue is not just Naxalism. Naxalism as an issue is there, but here tribal women, they are not allowing you to arrest that person or kill that person. So people who are innocent, now they are against you. The citizens themselves are against state or government machinery. This shows that there is a trust deficit. There is a trust deficit between state and citizens. Citizens do not trust, say, the state or the government or the police officers, and they rather trust these Naxalites. So this is a core problem which you need to deal with. Then the Naxalism is taking place. So think about why Naxalism is coming into picture. Think about that angle, because there was a development deficit. The government failed to develop that area. There is immense poverty, unemployment. The governance is not there in that area historically, and this is why this Naxalism has come into picture. So overall, while dealing with this issue, you should be very much sensitive about the entire core issue. Then you write about the solutions or the options which you want to write. So you may say, one of the way could be, I will have some dialogue and negotiation with these people. I'll try to understand their side. I'll empathize, but I will not move with the action that I'll leave the person altogether. You may take this side. You may even say that I will postpone the action. You may discuss, what if I resort to firing? This has been clearly mentioned. What if you resort to firing? So innocent people will die. Is law and order more important, or innocent people's lives are more important? That you can discuss here. And one more option is there, that is of counter narrative. You can send some people, you can come up with some information which shows that these Naxalites are not good people. You start convincing people, and then you can go ahead with community policing itself, wherein community or people themselves will help you in doing this policing part. You don't need to take all these actions. So this is how you can show all of these angles in the answer. So show the options, show the ethical dilemmas that you are facing. Life is important, or law and order is important, or arresting the Naxal is important. All of these things, and show how you can build that trust again, because citizens' trust is more important. It's like justice is important, but justice should also be seen. See, justice should not only be done, it should also be seen to be done. So if you just kill that person, people will agitate against the government itself. That will create more instability. People should also feel that government has done something good action. So that you have to show. So for that, whatever measures you can suggest. They asked what are the extra precautionary measures to be taken by police in dealing with women protesters. Now this is a separate question altogether from this. You wrote entire case study. After that, they are focusing on, if you have to deal with women protesters, what extra measures you will take, the precautionary measures. You can simply think about it. that we will have some police women police officers. We will not directly have physical touch with them. We will ensure that we do not get much violent, which is the common case with the men. So all of this you can mention over here. Clear? Easy. Now, question number 10. So this is a case study of conflict of interest. Now here is a lady, Sneha. She is senior manager in a hospital, a private hospital. Now what is happening is that she is in charge, and she has to procure or buy something, some equipment, some machines for this hospital. She is the in charge. Now she has asked many companies to come up with some bidding modules, their quotations and all. And she saw that out of all these companies who have come for this bidding process, one of the company or one of the person is her brother. And she also knows that her brother is going through some financial crisis. So she feels that I should ensure that she should get the deal. We should procure the items from his company, and then he will also earn. So in this case, there is a conflict between personal interest and professional interest. So this is a clear case of conflict of interest, and it's we can say this is a topic which is very common. UPSC has multiple times asked case study on this topic. So this is expected, we can say. So what will be Sneha's course of action? How would you justify, how would she justify what she chooses, and how medical ethics compromised with vested personal interest? ठीक. Now, her course of action. Any answer of this conflict of interest will be more or less similar. One option she has is to ensure that her integrity is maintained. So here in this decision making process, one thing she can do, she can make the process completely transparent. So whatever decision she is taking, everyone knows about that decision. That is one option. Another option is recusal. She can say, I will not take any decision as such. We will build a panel. That panel will take decisions. I'll not be the right authority to do that. Many times judges also do this thing. So recusal is one of the option available. Or you can go ahead with an external review. That means you took the action, you took the decisions, but you said that we will have an external review to show that I have taken actions with objectivity, with my integrity intact. So you can justify. They have asked you how she is going to justify. Justify it with all these values. Show that you have followed the procedure, you have followed the code of conduct, code of ethics, and your intent was very much pure to help your patients. See, here we are talking about medical ethics. In medical ethics, one of the most important thing is that whatever you do should be important or helpful for the patients. That's it. So if the procurement which is being done is even done with her brother's company, if his products are qualitative products, they can help the patients, then nothing wrong in going ahead with that contract also. So what matters is what is your intent. So show this. So in the intent part you mention that, and how is medical ethics compromised with vested personal interest. This you can show with some examples, that some doctors, because they have personal interest, they may give you unnecessary medication because they will get some amount of money. So such examples can be written, such things can be mentioned here very clearly. Okay. Now one more thing which you can add to give it a theoretical touch. You can talk about the importance of conscience in such cases. To come out of conflict of interest, if you listen to your conscience or inner voice, that will give you a way ahead. And if you have spirit of service and do it with nishkam karma, then also you can go ahead with the right way in this manner. So you can write the course of action in a right manner now. Now, second last case study, that is related to the heating, summer heating. The issue is that there is a water crisis going on, and now you are a district collector. Now here in your district there are some farmers who are going ahead with some irrigation, and because you think that the water crisis is a big issue, so you want that farmers should not go ahead with that. No farmer should go ahead with any borewell, or they should take water from river reservoirs, and you are taking action against such farmers who are doing it. When you started doing it, farmers started agitating. Farmers started saying that we have some industries over here, they are also taking up water from these river reservoirs, and you are not taking any action against that. So farmers have trust deficit in case of this government machinery. Government thinks that if we take action against these industries, there will be a new crisis in front of us, that is unemployment crisis. So whom should we give more importance? So in such case studies, again think about the core issue at hand. So one issue is the water crisis, you cannot neglect this water crisis. Another issue is unemployment, that also you cannot neglect. But if you have to set the priority very clear, what is more important? Farmers are coming up with crops, are the crops important? Yes, so you can say the food is very important, it is important. But unemployment will be there, job is also important. But there is your environment. Water crisis is showing that your environment is not in a good condition. If I have to set the priority clear, if there will be good environment, only then you will have food. And only if you will have food and you will eat something, then you can go ahead with your job. So this trajectory or this transition should be very clear. What is more important? What should be prioritized? But when it comes to administration, you cannot completely deny one thing and give importance to other. You have to ensure a balance, you have to give a balanced solution wherein you take actions related to all the three things. But environmental concern or this water crisis should be given importance or priority. So first of all, what you will do, we have competing interests. So you will try to provide equitable solution, equitable distribution of this water resource. You will try to ensure that the water regulation mechanism is there. You will try to conserve the water, so maximum problems will be solved if you ensure that the water is rejuvenated. You have enough water, then all other problems will not be there. So core issue, try to solve that in the measures, provide solution on that part. Okay, and now at last we have the last case study related to Dr. Srinivasan, who is a senior scientist in a reputed biotechnology company. Now what's happening is that they're observing a pandemic coming into picture which is spreading throughout the world. So this company thinks that we can come up with a vaccine which can help people, but they don't have the intention of helping people. The senior management is saying, Mr. Srinivasan, please do one thing, just manipulate the data and don't do all these clinical trials and all. Just come up with a product which is a compound of just whatever drugs which are already available, which are patented. Make use of it, make a compound and release it. We will earn profit because the vaccine will earn us lot of money. So this is the idea of senior management. And here Mr. Srinivasan, who is a senior scientist, he is in an ethical dilemma. So what should he do in this situation? What options he has? Examine the options and consequences. And the third question is relatively different. First, we'll deal with these two questions. First of all, when it comes to such situations, most important thing is your integrity. So focus on this angle that we will not compromise with our integrity at all. And here the idea of biomedical ethics is very important. There are four principles of biomedical ethics. One is autonomy. It means that whatever is being done, the consent of patient has to be taken. If patient wants it to happen with him, that should take place. So if you make a vaccine and it is not having done with some clinical trials and all, so you have violated the autonomy. Second principle is beneficence. Beneficence. It says that whatever action you do, maximum benefit should be there with the patient. But here, if he goes ahead with that action without clinical trials, data manipulation, that will not benefit the patient, rather the pharmaceutical company. Third, non-maleficence. Non-maleficence. It says that you should not harm the patient at all. If there is a risk, involved in your action which may lead to some kind of harm to the patient, you will not do that. And here if he goes ahead with that action, that will be maleficence. And fourth is justice, which says that the resources and all should be accessible to the patient. Now look at this. These are the four biomedical principles. Out of these, these three are directly violated in this case if this scientist goes ahead with this data manipulation and all. So I request you, while writing the answers, please mention these four principles and then mention what all dilemmas this person is facing, what all action he or she can take. So dilemma would be integrity in conflict, the job might be in conflict, he has to preserve the job also. Scientific integrity also in conflict. See, you are manipulating data, you are a scientist, you have the scientific integrity. What about the rights of people? All these are dilemmas which you can mention. For every option, you will have consequence. If you go ahead with it, then there will be negative consequences. And if you don't go ahead with it, there will be negative consequence only for the company to some extent, but at least the larger people, the public interest will be served to a great extent. This is what you will show. And at last, how can data ethics and drug ethics save humanity at large in such scenarios? So now you will understand whatever we discussed is somewhat related to the same thing. Data ethics or drug ethics. Data ethics means we are making use of data. See, if we manipulate data, it can be misused. It will have consequences which we cannot even imagine. And in case of drug ethics, when we are using any kind of drugs, if we manipulate that drug, if we are manipulating the this intellectual property, that will also have consequences beyond our imagination. So these are the things we have to show. Take the example of a pandemic and show it. Take the example of COVID, show it. This is how you will deal with this particular question. So simply at the end, in the conclusion, you can mention that this is a shortcut which he should not take. Think about larger impact. Clear? So this is all about 2024 mains ethics paper. Okay. Thank you so much.